Ever found your hands on the keyboard without looking, and somehow you're in the right place? Those tiny bumps on F and J are doing more work than you think. So why those keys? And why is that little feature basically everywhere? Here's the real reason in 3 parts. They act as landmarks for your index fingers. They snap you back to the home row, and they quietly make keyboards easier to use for people who don't rely on sight. Once you notice what they're doing, it's hard to unsee. Most people notice the bumps only when they're missing. They're called tactile markers, or homing keys, a physical reference point that helps you orient your hands. It's a tiny design choice that turns a flat grid of keys into something you can navigate by touch. And people underestimate how unnatural a keyboard is without a landmark. Most keys feel identical, and your fingers can't see. So one small physical cue becomes the difference between confident typing and constantly checking the keyboard. It's the same logic as raised marks on other controls. One tactile reference that anchors everything else. First, the home row idea. Touch typing is built around the home row. Your fingers live there and return there between reaches. When your index fingers land on F and J, the rest of your fingers naturally line up with the nearby keys. And that alignment is the whole trick. Once your index fingers are placed, your hands form a consistent shape over the keyboard. That's why you can hit keys you're not even thinking about. Your fingers are working off a map of distances, not letters. If your index fingers start one key off, the whole map shifts and suddenly, everything feels wrong. That's why F and J specifically matter. They're the index finger anchors. Your index fingers are the easiest to place precisely without looking, and they help position the rest of your hand. So the bumps aren't there to make typing faster directly. They're there to make your starting position automatic. Now the weird part, your hands don't really remember keys. They remember positions, where things are relative to your fingers. So those bumps work like the keyboard equivalent of north on a map. Once you've found it, everything else is easier to locate. Second, the bumps are a recovery system. Even good typists drift. Your hands slide a few millimeters over time, or you reposition after using the trackpad. The bumps let you recenter instantly without breaking focus to look down. Think about how often your hands leave the keyboard in real life. Mouse, trackpad, phone, coffee, posture shift, chair adjustment, tiny interruptions all day long. Each one nudges your hands slightly, and those small shifts stack up. The bumps act like a built-in recalibration, so you can restart clean in a split second. This is why the bumps feel so small, but so effective. You don't need a big ridge, just enough texture for your fingertips to recognize. It's like a hidden checkpoint that says, "You're home." And it's not only F and J. On many numeric keypads, the 5 key often has a similar tactile marker so you can find the center of the pad by touch. Same concept. One physical landmark that makes the rest of the grid easier. If you want to feel how powerful this is, here's a quick mental test. Picture closing your eyes and placing your hands on a keyboard. If you land on the bumps, typing feels normal immediately. If you miss them by 1 key, everything becomes guesswork. Third, it's an accessibility feature that helps more people than you'd expect. Tactile markers are useful for blind and low vision users, and they're often used to locate home position without relying on sight. That's part of why this design stuck, because it improves usability even when looking isn't an option. And even for sighted users, it's a quiet accessibility boost. Less looking down means fewer micro breaks in attention and fewer interruptions while writing. It also means you can keep your eyes on the screen, where your mistakes show up, rather than hunting for keys. It's one of those features that helps everyone, but matters most when you need it. Here's a small twist. The exact keys can vary on some keyboards. For example, some older Apple keyboards use different homing keys, like D and K, before moving to F and J later. So it's less about F and J are sacred, and more about give the index fingers a consistent tactile home. So why don't all keys have bumps? Because the goal isn't to label everything, it's to give you one reliable reference point. If every key had a marker, nothing would stand out, and you'd lose the landmark effect. This is the kind of design that disappears when it works. You're not supposed to notice it. You're supposed to just land correctly and keep going. And once you know what it's doing, you start noticing the same idea everywhere. Small physical cues that don't add flash. They add confidence. A tiny feature that prevents 100 tiny errors you never see. So the next time your fingers find the keyboard without looking, that's the point. Those bumps are your reset button, a tiny physical "you are here" marker built into the most used tool on your desk. Even the F and J bumps have a story. Small facts, big stories.